Welcome to the Heartwork podcast, where we delve into stories, struggles, and triumphs of entrepreneurship, leadership, and personal growth. I'm Dr. Sara.
And I'm Dr. Marisa. We're here to guide practitioners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and those just navigating the complexities of life on a journey of discovery that explores the dance between passion and strategy, heart and hustle.
With candid conversations, insightful interviews, and plenty of laughs, get ready to uncover how leading with heart can transform your business and life. Let's dive in. So welcome everybody to our first freaking inaugural podcast. Hello, hello. We're so excited. Can you believe it? There's a puppy in the background.
Forrest had to make an appearance.
He had to make an appearance.
Just loves to be on camera.
Mine is back here just laying down on the ground. So good boy.
Very good.
So I am so excited because this has been something we have been dreaming up for a while now, which is amazing. And I think everybody would love to know a little bit about our story. How the freak did we get to be friends? Well, also, how has this gotten to this point? So we were doing the math, and literally now we have known each other for over 6 years, which is
6 years.
Wild.
Yeah.
And it started within chiropractic school, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And then I had the privilege of having you join my practice back in 2019. So tell everybody and tell myself a little about that journey.
Seriously. Like thinking about how I remember hearing about this, like, oh, you have to meet Dr. Sara. Like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. And I remember going to one of the conferences that we were a part of this mentorship group, and like, oh my gosh, can you introduce me? Like Stephanie, who was going to be an intern in your practice, was like, I'll introduce you to Dr. Sara. And I remember like trying to think of what are the things she likes. Oh, she likes horses. Let me ask her about like how she got into horses and like how to make those conversational, pieces, And I never could have imagined from that day looking forward to now that I would have gone to your practice, interned in your practice, had the privilege of utilizing you as a resource in developing my first practice, and then also somehow just sharing about what was going on in my life, and then you connecting me with like a mentor who also really helped me and who still works with you, like really uncover what was going on internally in my world and in my life and in my heart, to then us now, like, I mean, I wish we could count how many Marco Polos that we have.
Oh my gosh. Marco Polo has become our best friend, like medium.
Literally. I'm trying to get everybody on Marco Polo, like my sisters, my friends.
Everything. The Marco Polo medium for friendship. I love it so much. For the virtual or like the long distance friendships, which is amazing.
Oh my gosh. It's fabulous. And also just we live busy lives. Like I'll send you Marco Polo. It's 10:30 at night. And it's like, you can watch it in your own time. It's fabulous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Oh,
it's incredible. I love you so much. I'm so grateful to go on this journey with you. And I think our audience is going to love everything that we're going to be offering and sharing. So I'm excited.
I agree. Do they know that you married us, me and my husband, last November?
I don't think so. How crazy is that?
They stalk us on socials somehow, but you came back up here to Iowa in November to marry us. I think we asked you a month beforehand.
I was shocked and blown away and incredibly humbled at the amazing opportunity of marrying you. It was amazing.
I know. I wish you lived closer. But you're originally from Wisconsin. I
am originally from Wisconsin, yes. And
you ended up in Knoxville. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jersey girl all the way.
Wisconsinite, cheesehead.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up in Knoxville because as I was coming through chiropractic school, I had done the tour of cities. A lot of chiropractors, if you're looking at opening a practice, you'll kind of figure out if you want to go back home and or if you're going to look at a different area. And I was a part of a couple of mentorships through school that really encouraged people to think about the idea of opening their own practice. And I don't know if this was the same for you. I think it was still, but being a associate or working for somebody else in their practice almost kind of was a little taboo at the time. And it was kind of this place to where it was, you weren't as almost good. At least that's the way I felt. I perceived it as this place to where I need to go open a practice or I'm a complete failure. Kind of. I was a little bit of a black and white individual over here. So, or at least I was. And so ended up doing an internship here in Knoxville with no intention of staying in Knoxville. I was planning on opening a practice in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I love the South. And I played basketball for 2 years in South Carolina. So I knew enough about I didn't want to go back to the cold in Wisconsin was pretty much part of that process.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Right. And so I ended up, was planning on opening a practice in Chattanooga, but ended up not kind of all the doors that were originally opened ended up closing. And when I first moved to Knoxville, I actually despised it. I didn't like it. But I kind of had this like thought process. I wasn't going to be here forever. So it was kind of this temporary spot that I didn't give a lot of intention or heart to. And so, and then I ended up staying. I ended up literally committing to stay as a doc in a practice here for 4.5 years. Oh
my God.
And it was incredible. I learned a lot of things that I wanted to do in my future practice, while also I learned a lot of things that I did not want to do. I think anybody can probably say that to a certain degree if you work for sure. Else. And while I felt like part of my journey in that process of going from wanting to open a practice to working for somebody else was a big like ripping and peeling back of some layers where it really had to navigate this process of I am not a failure. The shame that came from that was so deep and so big, and had to really work through this process of I am still valuable and I have the things I need to do, even if I'm working for somebody else. And then also then get to experience the place of like where you feel like your story was delayed or your dreams were delayed. And then they got to come back to fruition, which was just freaking beautiful. So this was 2020 or 2015, I started having a couple little dreams to open a practice. And I had somebody look at me. They're like, well, everybody else has done it. Why haven't you? And I'm like, right. Okay. And so I literally from January, the end of January 2015, had a 9-month business baby, Open Freedom Chiropractic in October 2015. So fast, and just has been a beautiful expression of myself over the years, which you guys are all going to hear a lot of as we get into a lot more of our stories. So
yeah, I mean, I completely relate to like going someplace and absolutely having no expectation or desire to stay. I mean, I moved to the Midwest to go to Palmer because it was the mothership school for chiropractic. And I was a Jersey girl. Like I had traveled the world, but I had not ever gone to the Midwest. And like there's Daytona Beach, Palmer. There was at the time like San Jose, Palmer. There's one in upstate New York, a school. There were so many other places that would probably be way more beautiful of like landscapes to go to. But I just said, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for 4 years. Why not 1, go to the mothership, but then 2, go someplace I've never been before, would never buy like a plane ticket. Like, let's go to Iowa to like hang out for a weekend, right? To go visit. And I just figured, you know what, let's pack up the bags, move to the Midwest. And I had all intentions of just being here for the 4 years and moving back. I really wanted to go back to my community because, you know, growing up, like I don't want to say I was like accomplished, but I was always doing something. Like I was the girl that was involved in all the clubs, in a sport every season, in music. I played classical piano for like 16, 17, 18 years, jazz band, drama club, theater, singing. Like I did it all, right? And I didn't by any means like have a tough childhood growing up. My parents separated when I was in middle school. And so I kind of moved around a lot. We went to Connecticut. We were back in Jersey. I changed school districts when I moved into high school. So I was like the new girl for a while. But I really found so much stability and I found so much worth in the girl that could make any situation work, right? Like I'll just transplant myself here, deal with this adversity, thrive through it. Cool. And then you hear the compliments of like, wow, you're so mature. Or, wow, you did so good, girl. Or like, yay on your A grades. Yay on your recital. And you just constantly are getting this feedback of compliments, which are beautiful, right? I'd rather get compliments than be like, you're not doing a good job or like do better, right?
Yeah.
So that's always great. But it definitely, you know, I'm firstborn child. I have 2 younger sisters. I helped take care of them while both my parents were working full time. And especially after the separation, right? Then my mom was a single mom. My dad was a single dad, making ends meet, making things work. And so I was for sure grew into that like detail oriented type A kind of motherly personality and just continued to develop skills to just continue to make sure I was like always doing my best and like putting my best foot forward and making it happen and finding the silver lining and making sure that it worked for me always. And so with that mindset and with that kind of training, I never really existed in the being. And so having a plan. I always had a plan. It was like, this was my one track mind of what I needed to do. I was going to move to Iowa, get my doctorate, move back home, serve my community, be close to my family. But through all that doing, there wasn't room or space for being. And so like for you to go to a place like Knoxville and say, this isn't going to be forever, I don't even like it, and then decide to stay and open up a practice that's a thriving, amazing practice. I mean, Freedom is incredible. I interned there. There are so many people that have come through Freedom that have gone on to continue to be associates or open up their own practices. And that was like one of the pivotal times for me too, even just learning from you and hearing from you, your story, and starting to have those little seeds planted in with questions that you would ask me of like, well, what about all that doing and what about being?
Right. I love that so much. And you and I think that's also why we jive really well, because we have very similar like stuff. Because I can relate to a lot of that. Like I was a firstborn. I'm a very performance results driven person and can do a lot of things while also at the same time exhaust myself, because it was never out of a space of doing it for myself. It was out of a space of doing it for other people, or this image or this result of performance that was needing to be accomplished. And that was part of this shift for me, where stuff started to change so I had the practice.
Grew so quick.
Yeah. We were seeing thousands of people a month, and was getting ready to hire my first associate, had a thriving team. At that point, I had over 10 plus interns that come through and like maneuvered on to opening their own practices or working with other docs. I was also leading and doing all these team stuff within our church at the time, constantly giving. I literally remember looking back at my days where I was going between like 7 a.m. to like 10 p.m. Like it was just a constant like thing, and just kind of this hustle where at the time I thought it was enjoyable. I was loving my life and it was great. But I had a moment where I literally remember sitting in my car, and my brother had gone through a relationship that was just not a healthy one, and had started dating this other beautiful, his wife, and I adore her and love her so much. And he had literally told me, he's like, I'm getting ready to tell her I love her. And I'm like, it affected me so much in the way of, it gave me the invitation to ask the question, why do I feel so left behind? When everything in my world from the outside looked great. Everything was wonderful. I had a thriving practice. And while in the inside of me, I really had a lot of stuckness, and I felt like there was this place to where I was living and doing things for others while not also doing it for my true self and what my heart was beating for. And then it went on this beautiful journey of a discovery of like what you were saying, of being versus doing. I love the saying, we are human beings, not human doings.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's tough. And I feel like in order for you to even start asking yourself those questions, like you have that kind of formative event, right?
Oh, totally,
for you, it was like that moment where your brother's telling you that he's going to propose to this woman and you're feeling left behind, even though like everything else is going so beautifully and like moving forward with such speed and acceleration in your life, right? For me, when I graduated chiro school, I was, again, one track mind, need to go home. And I had met my now husband at the time, and we had been dating for 2 years, and I always kind of plugged into him like, hello, this is my dream. Like, hello, we're going to move back to Jersey. Hello, this is where I'm going. Like, there's no way I can stay in the Quad Cities. There's the school. There's all these chiros. Like, I would be career suicide. No way. And so I went right back to Jersey, even though he stayed right here in Iowa. And I think I tried to like convince myself that, oh yeah, just give it time. Like, he'll come. But it wasn't in like his dream, even though it was 100% like my quote unquote dream, or rather this dream I convinced myself that I needed to have, because again, it was all about the doing. And it was like, I got my doctorate. I need to go home. I need to prove myself. Like I am worthy. I did this big thing. Like, let's show everybody what I did. Right. We ended up breaking up and ending things in like January of 2020. And I was in the midst of starting my first practice. Like our ribbon cutting was set for 2 months later. And I remember it breaking my heart. But I also remember like, well, I kind of expected this. Like I said, I was going to go home. And if he didn't come, like, bye, peace out, kick rocks.
Right.
Like we're going forward. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just dove more into like making this business my whole life. And not for nothing, when you are about to be an entrepreneur and start a business, like you do have to dive yourself into it. Right. So I convinced myself that I was doing this and I was doing it for the right reasons and it was going to be great. And then all of a sudden, like March 12th comes along and they're saying 2 weeks to slow the spread. And I'm like, holy shit.
Crap.
My ribbon cutting's in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, it'll be fine. We're just going to like all shut down for 2 weeks and then it'll be great. And we can open up the practice. And then they were like, boom, 2 more weeks to slow the spread. Yeah. 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. And it slapped me in the face. Just like, I mean, I think so many people had formative like come to Jesus moments during COVID time, because for the first time, at least in my life, I had to sit with myself, like in complete silence and nothing else. I didn't have a job because I was diving into the business full term. I didn't have a business. Chiropractors, like, you know, we were essential healthcare workers, but nobody knew me at that point. We had pre-booked, like preset appointments ready to rock starting in early April, but nobody built credibility and trust with me. I was just this new person opening a business and they got like a special opening discount, right? So for the first time, everything else was taken away. I mean, you couldn't even go and see family. Like going to the grocery store was, oh my God, how dare you leave the house, right? And so I was literally just by myself in my one room. Like I was staying with my dad and his wife. And he was never home because he would work in like Hoboken in New York. She would work from home sometimes or be out in her office. And so I was like there alone. And then all of a sudden they were there, but I had nothing else. And I realized when all of that other stuff was taken away, I actually wasn't happy with just me.
Yeah.
And I realized that to prove that I was worthy or to prove that I had a seat of table at the success, like I always focused on the external and the outside versus actually listening to and focusing on the internal. And it was a really low and like depressive time for me. I mean, I would stay up for hours, like crying at night, just wishing that I was anywhere else but there. I mean, I think we all at some point wish we could just go back and like hug the person that we were and just tell them like, I promise it's all going to be okay. But I had to go through that. Like you have to go through those moments of adversity where you feel like you're at your lowest low to really understand and know who you are and start exploring the reasons of why you got there or why maybe you chose the things that you did, and not out of regret or out of like shame, but just a deeper understanding of yourself. I started like listening to myself more and understanding and dreaming about what I really wanted my life to look like.
Yeah.
And so I started to make decisions and just take steps to move more towards those desires. You connected me with Pablo. We can throw a shout out to Pablo. We know a lot of people that work with Pablo. We've continued to connect a lot of people with him because for the first time I was able to speak with someone who didn't listen to what I was saying, but listened between the lines.
Right.
And asked me the questions that I was too scared to ask myself. Because of what that actually meant and how I had operated for the last 20 some years. And I just realized that I started to work so hard and so badly for the signs of approval from everyone else except for me.
Right.
So during that time, it was kind of fun. Like I started doing the things that I loved to do again. I played piano. I was like dancing in my basement. And I even... What's that?
Well, when you moved, you rode a horse?
When I moved, but I did. I started was like, oh, I'm going to drive to the Midwest because New Jersey is not fun right now. Yeah. And I can't do anything, or I can't even walk in the park. Like they were closing parks. And it was just like, that's a whole other story. But I really started to pray more and meditate and be mindful of the things I was feeling and understand what those desires were. And I just started to relinquish control. Like, and instead of just doing, because you couldn't, like I would just be and exist. And things, it's amazing what you do and what happens when you hold on more loosely. Things just start to fall in line. And like the universe proves that it has your back. But it does that like when you're actually living more from your truth and more authentically. And so that COVID time was really my like eat, pray, love time where I just had this compacted experience of understanding myself in like 7, 8 months.
Right.
And during that time, I got to sell my practice, take some profit, and move back to the Midwest. And my husband and I are married now, and I got my dog back. So
literally,
like just totally, and you married us.
Yeah. Like, what in the world? Like, if you had, nobody would have been able to formulate that type of an experience from what you just, though. No. I mean, that's like the beautiful thing I think we both have come to know. It's like when you take all those other things aside and when you really peel all of it back, like, who are you outside of those aspects of that life that we were seeking, that doing that you were doing, you know, and trying to uncover, but at the same time having no understanding of what your heart actually wanted and who you were in the first place. And now freaking look at you, you know, like, and like what we've both been able to uncover is absolutely remarkable. And it's fun and it's playful and it's healthy. And there's such a different expression comparable to, like, doesn't mean life is not hard, but we were talking about like completely depressed and crying and like constantly going and tired and exhausted all the time. There's a difference between working hard and having fun and playing and having it from a playful place comparable to you're working hard, you're exhausted, you're doing all the things for a result or for a performance or for somebody else.
100%.
So
yeah,
I love that. And I love that so much from your story. It's such a beautiful, beautiful picture about, like you said, letting go of control and releasing that grip on what was happening in your life. So I love it.
And you've had to do a lot of that too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that was like the beautiful place of, I mean, without getting into so much of this beautiful journey, I feel like what I've experienced is a place to where you reclaim pieces of your heart back and understand what it's like to know your heart and know yourself and how it beats from there. And then how that filters into everything that we get to do. For me, obviously, a big part of my life is being a chiropractor, being a business owner, being a visionary. Well, also, yes, I am now a wife and I have relationships and friends and all those types of things, while also the place to which I've gotten on this journey of really understanding my true identity, my true like self-worth, my love, my care for myself has been a place to where, because I have reclaimed the piece of my heart, I get to make those decisions out of so much more of an organicness, so much more out of a space of what my heart actually beats for versus, again, having to do it for something else. And
100%.
And it truly is a ripple. Like you said, like sometimes things just all of a sudden freaking fall into place. Like they just kind of just go without us having to hold on so tightly. And you can't, there's just no like rhythm or rhyme to it a lot of times. So
no. And it takes constant work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not like you just go through this like period of adversity and you start asking yourself the tough questions and you like understand your heart more and put it forward. I mean, even for me now, like I live in a place that I enjoy. I find a lot of peace there. I love my pace of life. I love being kind of in the suburbs, but still like 2 to 3 hours from any major city. I love the cost of living here in Iowa compared to New Jersey, and that I can, you know, like look at a plain of cornfields and see the night sky. Or if I want to, I can go stand on the top of a tall building downtown and like look at the Mississippi River if I want to. But like I still struggle with making some of those decisions. Like the hardest part was obviously for me leaving my family behind. Like I still struggle with some of the feelings of like, no, I should have stayed for them, or like I should have done this for them. And so it's a constant battle, even of just planning vacations and trips home. Like, am I doing this because I want to go home and authentically, really, truly want to be there? Or am I doing it because I'm like, oh, I haven't seen them in 3 months. Like, I really need to do this out of guilt or out of some other like need to glean something or prove that I'm still present, even though I don't live there. Right. And so you're always continuing to evaluate your choices and how you're making your choices, because at the end of the day, if you constantly are focusing what your choices are on what someone else may do in response to your choice, or thinking that they're going to make the same choice as you. Like, for example, I have 2 sisters, one's in New York, one's in Philly. So obviously being in New Jersey, I'm closer to both of them. But if I stayed just because of the hope that one day, like we were all going to be sisters in the same area and it was going to last for 20 years and it was going to be amazing. And one sister is already talking about moving to another location, is that going to set up such resent in my heart? Because then I didn't listen to myself. I made a decision for someone else, but I don't have control over what someone else's decision in life might turn out to be.
Nope.
And so you're constantly trying to make decisions and evaluate the choices and the life that you're leading. Are you doing it from yourself, from your heart? Or are you doing it from someone else's? Or are you leading with your ego because you want a pat on the back because you made this specific decision? Right. And so like you can value your drive. Like I value my drive. I value my ability to make any situation happen and find that silver lining. Right. Yep. I value hard work, and I value like making sure that I quote unquote feel accomplished in my own right at the end of the day. But I know now how to recognize what that actually looks like in an emotionally healthy way. And I feel just as accomplished if I spend a whole day in a bath reading a great book as if I have like a record week in the office, right?
Exactly.
Like, it just ebbs and flows.
It's very true. I mean, both of you and I like talk all the time about like all of our dreams, all the things that we're getting ready to like think about, how we're leading our teams, how we're advancing our impact and enhancing that. While also those decisions that we make are something that are out of a place of peace, about a place of rest, and a place of just ease. And I think there is that difference when it comes to making a decision based on so much like worry and tightness and grimness. I mean, if you ask yourself how you feel in those moments, you're going to feel the constriction. You're going to feel a lot of that stress anyway. And comparable to doing it from a place of, okay, this is the rhythm I feel like I'm being drawn into, I'm being called into, I'm gently being like shown a way into, is a very different comparable to you again, making a decision based on something that's so far ahead, like if you're thinking about your sisters, like that was something that's so uncontrollable and out of your grip in the first place.
Oh yeah. 100%.
It's just wild. So I love it so much. And just to be able to think about like, I think overall, that's why you and I started this podcast, or even thinking about wanting to do this, right? Of like being able to share the places of what we've uncovered in our hearts and what we know to be true, and how that then relates to business, how it relates to leadership, how it relates to how you lead your life, and ultimately in the day to hopefully inspire and enrich. Like, I know that if this is going to enrich me, I hope that it enriches somebody else, but I also it's not for that. It's ultimately in the day to be able to share our stories, and then maybe it'll impart something to somebody else at the same time. So
absolutely. So if we leave our audience with anything today, I think really at the end of it is just, are you asking yourself the question of like, who are you without all of the things? And if everything was taken away from you in a heartbeat, are you happy with the person that shows up every day in your life? And are you putting your heart first in the decisions that you do make that create the beautiful fabric of the life that you're leading?
Yep. And it's not an easy. I asked that question to a lot of my team. I have asked it to every single intern that's come through my office.
Me too.
I know, right?
You asked me, and I remember being like, I don't know how the fuck to answer this question. What do you mean? What's the right answer? How do I get an A+ on the answer?
It's not an easy question to ponder. And so for our listeners, we both would love to invite you in that place of like, who are you without all those things? You may be a mom with 3 kids. You may be a chiropractic student. You may be an entrepreneur that's running 5 different businesses. I don't know. Totally. But if you don't have any of those things, and I think it's really easy to also put yourself into categories also where you're saying, well, I am extroverted. I'm an Enneagram 8. I do all these things. I like to have fun. I like to go out. Those still are characteristics of you. If you still peel all those things back and you let yourself just sit with yourself, who are you without all those things? And where can that decision and heartbeat come from as you move then forward? And then to also just give yourself some grace if you don't have the answer right away. Because I think that's one of the things that, I know both for you and I, that wasn't just an overnight discovery. That was a discovery that happened over the course of time.
And it's still happening.
100%. So yeah, who are you without all of the things?
Love it. Well, thank you guys for listening to our first podcast. So fun. And we can't wait to see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.